So a very good morning to everybody, and once again a very warm welcome to our Business Spotlight interview series. My name is Ron Maycock. I'm the owner of Action Coach Castleford and also Business Performance UK, and I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Pat Flannery, who is Managing Director of National Trench Safety UK. Very good morning to you, Pat.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning.
It's great to have you with us, and we'll be hearing a lot more from Pat in just a few moments. Before we actually do that, though, I just really wanted to explain what the purpose of these interviews actually is. So we're surrounded by some amazing businesses in our region. They've each got their own stories, and these interviews help us share their achievements, ultimately share their journeys, and it's all in the interest of increasing awareness of what that business is actually doing. Now, increasingly, that awareness, which we share in the name of abundance, is actually not just across the UK, but it is international as well. So we're working with doing interviews with businesses based out in Australia, over in the US, across Europe, and this is actually becoming a global thing. So it's a great opportunity to share the journeys on a wider stage. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Pat. Pat, do you want to tell me a little bit more about National Trench Safety?
Yeah, for sure, Ron. National Trench Safety is UK is the UK division, obviously. We are an American-owned business, so our head office is in Houston, Texas, and we've got probably 65 depots in the US. So 2 here in the UK currently, and we're planning a third, possibly close to London later this year. We are a specialist rental company. We rent trench support systems for quite big excavations and small excavations. Within the UK, it's a very sort of niche industry. There's only 2 or 3 big players and ourselves who entered the market 6 years ago now. So that's who we are. We supply the civil engineering sector. And we are expanding rapidly. We're having great success through the trials of starting up a new business in the UK in an established sector. And we are, through various good luck or good management, we are very, very successful at the minute. So yeah, it's going well.
So it's a sort of fast-growing area. So just to put this into context, when it is often a relative kind of thing to different people. So a relatively small trench or hole, I'll not say what does that look like. Obviously, it's a hole or a trench. But what kind of projects, what kind of things would that be associated with, and what are the big ones? What would you class as a medium to bigger trench?
The drivers within, we are in the health and safety business. We keep people safe when they enter an excavation. An excavation can be 2 or 3 or 4 feet deep. You might not think that's very deep. I'm sure me and you, Ron, have been in bunkers that are deeper. But, so, and then we go up to the other end of the scale where we do basement propping in London, in Canary Wharf, for, structures which are 30, 40 stories high, but before you do that, you go 2 or 3 stories lower for car park, etc. We're currently involved in, the biggest project in Europe, which is HS2. So anything from Yorkshire Water, Thames Water, repairing a pipe in the street, to major bridge abutments on big projects. So in between that is what we're interested in.
And everything in between. So the actual, if you like, without going into the intellectual properties and everything like that, but in layman's terms, what are we talking? These are support structures, so sort of beams and roofing and sidewall, so it doesn't cave in, basically. Is that the premise? Or
it's keeping the excavation intact so that the sites don't fall in. It's also keeping the people safe who are working inside the excavation. So you cannot enter an excavation of more than 3-4 foot deep without trench support system. You can't. It's against HSE rules. So, our name is National Trench Safety. That's the industry we're in. We keep people safe when they're in an excavation. That's in essence is what we do. Most of the shoring that we supply is steel. We have got some aluminium products as well for smaller machines and smaller excavations.
Mm-hmm.
We keep people safe when they're working in an excavation, whether that be repairing a pipe to building a structure in a sewerage treatment works, anything below ground where people have to enter the excavation, we supply the safety kit to make that possible.
That'll actually do that. And is this a rental based agreement? So you rent the equipment out, but physically own it as a business, or subcontracting it as and when, and then sublet it out, or do people buy this off you on a regular basis?
95% of our business is rental. We are a rental company, so we rent the equipment to the contractor, whether that be a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 contractor, and they use it in their subcontract package. We don't actually install the equipment. We give advice and engineering and design to the contractor, and he takes notice of that and puts it in correctly. So
yeah. So and are you involved with that sort of site training of how to use the system? Because I think offline before this, at some point you were saying that there is some unique elements to what you do, that it's a faster system or whatever, and it has some fundamental differentiators. So is there an ongoing training of, once they've actually signed up and said, yes, we're going to use National Trench Safety, this is how you do it, and there's another revenue stream actually coming from that training as well as the rental?
There is an element of training. The reason for starting the company 6 years ago was to bring into the UK a system called slide rail.
Mm-hmm.
Now, slide rail was not used or run as a product by any other shoring company in the UK, and that was the driver to do it. If we started a shoring company which had the same products as everybody else and painted it a different color, the only differential is price, and mm-hmm. we're not interested in that. So we had to come up and we had to introduce a system that wasn't used in the UK. It's used in America, South America, Australia, Europe, everywhere else in the world apart from the UK. And mm-hmm. we realized there was a niche market or a gap in the market for this product. It's a German product from a company called SBH, and we've got the sole rights to that product in the UK. So we've got something that nobody else has got, and it is commercially better for the contractor to use our system. It's safer, there's less lifting, and it's quicker. So the contractors love it, and you don't have to put a man into the excavation until it's all finished. Mm-hmm. So the excavator has excavated, whatever size excavation you're doing, and then you can put a ladder down and a ladder platform when it's safe to enter the excavation. So the whole reason for starting the company 6 years ago was to bring something into the UK which was smarter than everybody mm-hmm. else's, and that's what we've done. It was tough. The first couple of years were really tough because they're going, National Trench, we know you, Pat, but we don't know National Trench slide rail. What's slide rail? So there was an awful lot of education had to take place on site, online, in person, presentations. But now the industry has got the message, and they understand slide rail, they understand the commercial benefits, and they understand the safety benefits. And if you talk to any contractor anywhere in the world, or the developed world, and you say, this system's a little bit safer, it's a little bit quicker, they're going to listen to you. And that's what we've got.
So the opportunity and the growth, what fundamental challenges? You said that this is a German system, and I'm not going to say the B word or anything like that, but essentially we're now in a supply chain where things coming from Europe isn't quite as streamlined as perhaps it used to be. Coupled with that, things like the crisis with the blockage of the Suez Canal, and it was well documented that a lot of construction materials were stuck on the wrong side of a strip of water and strips of land, and basically couldn't get through. That caused a backlog. So your rapid growth, what challenges is that presenting from a good position of growth, but what are you having to face up to now as the reality of that supply chain?
Recently, the supply chain has been very, very challenging, especially from Europe. So we buy steel sheet piles, which are generally the town in Ukraine, Mariupol, where there's a big steel plant, which was just decimated, which it made steel, just the spike in the price of steel was unreal. It's now come back down, but not to the levels that it was. So our product, the core product of steel makes the end product more expensive. So had those challenges, supply challenges, Brexit. It's back down to probably a week shipment from Germany, which is not too bad. We can cope with that, but we were quite lucky that we didn't. When the steel prices went up, we bought 3 months before that. And they came back down again, and then we bought again. So I'm not saying that was good management, but it was probably a little bit of that and good luck that we bought just before the spike. Brexit is, when Brexit happened, we had trucks stuck in Rotterdam for a month. Couldn't get the paperwork right. That's now all settled down, and we can get trucks through the ports, relatively easily because everybody knows the process now. So that's.
So are you, I'll not say completely dependent on the sort of timelines, but a lot of the frustration that people get when they're supplying into construction is people will say this is when we need something on site by, and then there's delays. And so is this a case that your business model is robust enough that once you've supplied this stuff, then if they take longer and need it for longer, then it's just an ongoing thing and you're contractually sound? Or are they increasingly turning around and going, can we just stop paying you because everything else is gone on to hold? Are you sort of embroiled in that greater delivery of the project, or you
in general,
put the stuff out there, you get it?
In general, if there's delays on site, it's good for us because the rental is so we charge more for it. The one case that did cause us problems was COVID, the pandemic, when we had excavations in the ground and the sites were closed. We got the phone call, can we stop paying you for this? And we said no, because equipment is doing its job. It's either on hire or it's off hire. If it's off hire, send it back. So couldn't send it back because they were halfway through the process. So unfortunately, we continue charging for that. That I said to the contractor, I said, this is what it's going to cost you for keeping that site closed. And very quickly, within a couple of weeks, the site was open again.
It's a good position to have, and at the end of the day, once you've dug a trench, dug a hole, and it's shored up, it's not as if you can just remove all the equipment and do nothing else. It'll collapse. So even if there's no workers on there, it's going to cause fundamental damage to buildings or whatever's above it. So
it's like an excavator where it's not being used and it's turned. Nobody's using it. Stop the hire. Our equipment is either on hire or it's off hire. There's no grey areas, and that happens at Christmas when there's a shutdown. They say, well, we want to off hire. Well, send it back. Well, no, we can't send it back because I said, well, it's still on hire then. We have that annual argument, but
so with the actual products, then are they entirely reusable and therefore re-rentable, or are there certain elements that become part of the integration of the actual project, and therefore you have to have them repaired or renewed, resupplied within your own supply chain?
The lifespan of the equipment is very good, 10 to 15 years lifespan of the equipment. we use it and reuse it and reuse it. It's a great product. It does wear out eventually, but it takes time, and we repair it and re-weld bits and make running repairs, but generally it's a good rental product. What was the other part of the question, Ron? Sorry.
It was really getting an understanding of where that fits in. So, you know, if it's wear and tear, and ultimately once it's expired its safe usage, then it's replaced, as opposed to you get 90% of what you supplied back, but then you're constantly dependent on this, you know, the additional sort of supply chain that might have come from steel products or whatever. So I'm guessing your balancing act is how much physical plant and machinery and assets that you sit on, and therefore what that is looking like against the demand pull through from the market. Is that the sort of fundamental balancing act?
It is. The balancing act is getting the right amount of stock and the right amount of sales, and then some more stock and then some more sales, and that's how we've grown it. You can't rent it out if you haven't got it in your yard, so there's a certain amount of feeling within the economy and the market to say, right, the next 6 months we're going to need this, and then, you know, predicting the sales to match what stock you've got, and just keep building it all the time, and opening new depots and a new salesman and building the business. But what you can't do is run out of stock, because you never pick up the phone and say, sorry, we haven't got any, because, you know, that's the last time they'll ring you. So you've always got to have stock. Sometimes it's a little hand to mouth. So, you know, Wolfgang, I need 3 trucks of, you know, I need it on Monday. And fortunately, Wolfgang does accommodate that, and we generally just get there in time. But that's the skill into not having too much stock, because then your depreciation's high versus your revenue. Just getting that level of around 70% utilization of your stock.
Yeah. And it's the old adage of stock being a bad word in business, because it was dead money, to actually saying, actually through intermediate Kanbans or whatever, we can have the essential stuff and then forward order and make sure we're managing that supply chain so we can do other things that maybe move less regularly, but we can get those in at short notice, and having those agreements is the key. So as a business, then, we said that the market and the industry has faced challenging times. People stopped digging holes and construction stopped, and through no fault of their own. And then there's obviously been a few knock-on effects with certain large contractors going bust and leaving excessive debt within that supply chain. But as a business, and as a UK entity, what have been your biggest challenges, and what continue to be your biggest challenges?
I suppose the biggest challenge is keeping the right set of people working for you. Our business would be nothing without the people, and recruiting the right people is key. The other challenges are entering a market where nobody has heard of your company or heard of your product. During COVID, we changed the way we did things a little bit, in terms of digital marketing and how we engaged with the customer, and how the sales team engaged with the customer. The challenges of COVID was huge, and we took a decision to stay open, and we didn't close for one day. We stayed open every day, because we were supplying critical infrastructure like sewage treatment works, like water treatment works. Didn't reach the news, but if people, you know, flushed the toilet and it didn't flush, there'd be, you know, it would reach the news. But because we were supplying that sector, we stayed open, and we classed ourselves as, you know, whatever the term key workers was. And we stayed open. Whether that was the right decision or the wrong decision, in hindsight, I think it was the right decision. We kept everybody paid. We didn't furlough one person. Everybody in the yard came in, everybody worked, everybody had their own space. So those were challenging times, very, very challenging, because there was no rule book. Everybody was like, well, what did we do last time? Well, we don't know. Nobody knew what the right decision was. And that was very challenging because, I live in a small cul-de-sac, and I went to work every day, and the neighbours like, he's going to work again. He's going to work again. They were like fascinated as to what I did. And I explained to them later, I said, well, we kept the key infrastructure of the company going. Didn't reach the news. It's not a sexy industry, right? But, we kept things moving for you guys. We didn't realize that. We thought it was, just X person or that person.
Yeah.
So, we've got all these, particularly the water industry. We had to go to work. No two ways about it. So those were big challenges. Just going back to your original question, getting paid is a big challenge. Avoiding those bad debts is challenging. I'd like to say that the tier 1 contractors are a lot better than they used to be. They sort of pride themselves in paying people on time, which is good. And that's where we're trying to steer our company away from tier 3 contractors who work for some house builders who don't pay in December. And then that means that we don't get paid till February. And moving the company away from those type of customers to ones that pay. A job isn't a good job until you've been paid.
Yeah.
And, so it can be the biggest excavation in the world, but if you don't get paid for it, it's a disaster. So maneuvering the company into sectors that are more secure, less exposed to the inflation rates and housing, and that slowing down, and then that results in payments being delayed, and then ultimately we seem to be the bottom of the food chain. We get paid last, but that's the challenge. That's the challenge. We can have lots of revenue, but if we don't get paid, it's all for nothing. So you've got to make sure that you get paid.
So how's that shaping what's next for the business? You said that you've said that the product is different, but it's new. So there's been this phase of educating people of the benefits of and the reasons why. You said that you've learned from certain things in your control, outside of your control, that have influenced. It's a term in coaching that we often use, which is called learned helplessness. So a bad experience leads you to believe that is the truth, and therefore getting your fingers burnt by people not paying you tends to, rightly or wrongly, influence you away from certain things and say that's what we're doing. So what is the plan over the next few years? Where do you see the business going?
My challenge from my bosses in America is to double the business. That's it. Just double it, Pat, and then they walk the other way. So the rest is left to me. So by doing that, we need another depot closer to London. We can tap into that market, which is a market on its own, and just keep doing what we're doing. We're good at what we do. I think that's one of the reasons why people use us. We've got an excellent engineering team. We've got an excellent sales team who can help and advise people. We can solve problems. We can make people money by doing it quicker and safer, and getting the job done 2 weeks earlier. That's why they like using our system. So yeah, we're going to steer the company towards London and that market, and it's. We are now owned by a private equity company in New York, and that, I don't really think they're interested in excavations. They're just interested in making money. So,
Yeah, the irony is they want to make sure that they're not just pumped into a load of money into a big black hole.
yeah.
As sure as it might be. So,
So we've been doing it 5 years, and our returns over the last 3 years are very, very good.
yeah,
And I've worked for other shoring companies in this industry, and our EBITDA is great
yeah, yeah.
compared to their big machine. Our EBITDA is great. So they look at, right, where we're going to invest the money. Let's have a look at Pat's in the UK. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to invest money there because of the return.
Yeah.
So that's very simple.
And it's a good thing because doubling a business, going for sort of aggressive growth over a period of time is fine. The moment that they turn around and go, oh, it's self-funding, you've got to fund this yourself, then that becomes more of an issue. Yes, they're going to scrutinize the numbers. Yes, they're going to turn around and say, what are you actually spending? Where's our ROI coming from? And that's how private equities work. But essentially, if the plan and the model to grow is substantiated, then they will put the money behind it. And that's a good position to be in, rather than just go to commercial lenders and self-fund or do it out of your own profits.
It's our business is quite simple, Ron. It's not complicated. We lend people our equipment, they pay us for it, and they give us it back.
Mm.
I know to the penny how long a piece of slide rail takes to pay us back. So the mechanics are very simple, and once that equipment's paid for itself, and that time scale I'm not going to reveal, it makes us a good investment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very simple rental is very simple. It's a very simple business. It's not complicated whatsoever. I mean, the excavations are complicated and complex and sometimes challenging, but we give people our equipment, they use it for a couple of months, and they give us it back and they pay us for it. And
it's keeping it in a reusable, re-rentable kind of format. As long as you can maintain and service and look after your equipment, then you know that you've got a lifespan of that and what the return is. Then it just becomes a case, I'm guessing, of making sure it's utilized to the maximum. And after that, as you say, it becomes quite a simple business model if you do the right things and don't get caught out with having to, constantly renew things because they've been being misused or not kept up to date. So one question, and it could be, I guess, about the industry, about your own journey in terms of entering the UK market. Might be on a personal thing, but we all learn over our journeys in business. If you had your time again, is there anything that you'd change, anything that you do differently, or anything in particular you've learned from the last few years that you would love to pass on to other people also in the journey of business?
In the journey of life, I wish I'd have bought several houses when I was 21 because they would have turned into a nice nest egg. But in business, I think just learn every day, work hard. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And just, we haven't built this business overnight. It's taken long hours, long tortuous hours of, the early days when the truck didn't move. And, it's like thinking, what are we doing here, And then it starts and then it grows and then it, I'll never see the trucks now. We've got 6 trucks now and I never see them. They're constantly out delivering and collecting. But you've got to have that. You've got to have the backing, because investing in this industry, this niche industry, takes a lot of money, a lot of upfront money. And I think if you were to go to a bank and say, this is the business we're going to start, they would question it. But because it was being funded by a guy who's been in the industry 20, 30 years, he knew the timescales of what it would take to get that establishment. And his backing, a chap called Mr. Ron Chilton from Houston, was the key to it, because he knew that it would work. He knew that it wouldn't work within 12 months or maybe 18 months or maybe 2 years, But he knew by year 3 the returns would be very, very good. And it's his backing and faith in the people that we have here and the team that I could gather around me, which has made it successful. So we live and learn every day, and I'll never stop learning. And you've got to have that that mindset that says, well, this has happened, so if we did this differently, we could do that. Right? Okay, let's not deal with smaller contractors who are working for house builders. But okay, let's work in this direction. We're still in the same industry.
Yeah.
But we're now at a point where we can pick and choose who we want to work with.
So it's very interesting. There's far too often we look at the challenges and say, oh, that's just a bad industry, or that's a bad decision, and that's what we're stuck with, rather than saying, actually, given that that's not right for us, we can do this because of all of these other wonderful things that we do. And it's a great mentality to have, to really look at the positives. The harsh reality is there's less than 20% of the population globally that automatically are drawn to the positive rather than to the negative. Most people hit the negative and then go, oh, that's a pain point, how do I move away? Rather than just going, forget that, let's just pick a better future for ourselves and control that, so really great way and a great share. So that's bringing us towards the end of the of this interview. Just a bit of a sanity check. Is there any areas that we've not covered, or anything that you'd like to add, Pat, before we do wrap up?
Well, I think it's been great talking to you, Ron. And it's interesting just to stop and talk about the business, and hopefully people can take one sentence, a couple of sentences, and go, we need to do that, or we don't need to do that, or whatever. And I think by doing this forum, people can take snippets away and just think, well, let's work for perhaps learn from that hard yards, and and move the business a little bit in this direction, which is
and I think the important thing as well is, as you say, a few years ago, and given everything that's happened, it might feel like it wasn't that long ago because everyone lost a few years, kind of thing. But you're relatively new. It's about raising awareness. It's about more and more people who potentially watch this actually going, oh, right, okay, that's what they do. I've come across the name. I haven't come across the name. And we've got something that's happening that might warrant having a conversation. And it all starts there to actually say, great, okay, didn't know you existed until recently. Where can it benefit us, because this is what we do? And if it leads to a few things like that, then it's always a good thing. So no, that's really good. So just thanks. It does bring us really to the end of this interview then. So just really would like to thank Pat for sharing the journey, his own learnings along the way as well, because that is very, very useful. And also sharing the journey of National Trench Safety, and in what is pretty much exciting times. This is the start of the next phase rather than the end of a phase. So it's always good to hear companies are moving in that direction. So thank you for sharing all of that. All that sort of remains to be said then, if you're watching this, if you're gaining inspiration, if you're thinking about your own business and how you can showcase that, then when we post these interviews out there onto the internet and on various different medias, obviously there will be links so that you can book in, you can get in contact, and you can actually go about showcasing your own business as well. But as a final close, thanks again to Pat. I'll sure see you, no doubt, this weekend in a very different circumstance, where we're both trying to dig our way out of holes in the ground that shouldn't be there whilst we're on a golf course. But thanks again to Pat. And thank you to everyone for watching another instalment of our Business Spotlight interviews, and we'll see you soon. Take care.